Yes. Enough.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah. Because if I put full maximum, then I'm getting the echo. So I think that's okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining for our second webinar, free webinar 02. Okay. Before I forget, there will be one more webinar, free webinar next week. Supposed to be, I just realized Tuesday is our Pongal. So Pesta Menuai for the Hindus, the Indians, sorry. So maybe a bit on Wednesday, but I'll keep you all updated the exact date by tomorrow. Okay. It's on instrument development, free workshop on instrument development. So just keep yourself free. It's quite short topic for instrument development. Okay, so let's get started. Our research. Okay, so research proposal is the key. When you start your research, right? When you are just embarking on your research, your PA, it can be a DBA, it can be masters by research. The first thing that you will do kind of like two phases. First phase, you need to clear your proposal defense. Second phase, you need to clear your Viva. Okay. So we need to. So can you move on to your first phase is chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Can you go into data collection without clearing your proposal defense?
Cannot.
Cannot. So your first gate is you need to clear your proposal defense. So when we say proposal defense means comprises of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So we have 3 important chapters to be cleared. Okay, what happened? What happened if, let's say, you're in your proposal defense, your examiners are very lenient. So they know that you have some issues, but they did not really strongly highlight, so they passed you, right? But your chapter 1, chapter 3, chapter 2, chapter 3, you have a lot of issues. Your 4 and 5 will be good. Do you think your 4 and 5 will be good if your 1, 2, 3 is not strong?
No, doctor.
Okay. So always remember first phase, second phase. We have 2 phases. Phase 1 is chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Phase 2 is chapter 4, chapter 5. So phase 1 will have a very strong impact on your phase 2. So if you don't write a good phase 1, which is your research proposal, then the impact will be on your data collection. That means chapter 4 and chapter 5. Okay, so that's why you have to make sure whether your examiners are going to pass you, whether your examiners are going to give you all the feedback and comments or not, you yourself, because your research is yours, so you yourself have to take ultimate interest in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Okay, what I have seen over the years, the problem with chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, the problem among students is that we are more start writing our thesis or start writing our chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 without understanding what research is all about. So most of the time, you will refer to past thesis. So you don't even know whether the thesis is good or not, right? But you just refer to some senior's thesis or some friend's thesis or something like that. You try to figure out, oh, this is how she or he has written the one. This is how they have written this. This is how they have written that. So we start following. So we are doing things without understanding why. That is the main problem. So when you do that, do you think that you can answer questions during your PD or Viva properly? Cannot?
Cannot.
Right?
No.
That's why when examiners throw question during your, not only examiner, even your supervisor, when your supervisor asks you, why probability? I don't see why you're using a probability here. I'll finish. You don't know how to answer. Because why? You don't know why you're using a probability. You don't know why you're using a non-probability. You don't know why you're using this theory. Majority people use, I'm using it. Is that a good justification?
No.
No. So the most important thing is that know what you are doing First. Second, understand your research area. Don't worry about other people's research area. Your research area is your baby. So you need to groom your baby. Your baby has to grow. So you need to do the grooming for your baby, right? So that means you need to understand. Simple. Actually, I have gone through the process and many of y'all are in the same journey, right? Thesis writing is not difficult at all, right? So thesis writing is not difficult at all. The most difficult part is that doing thesis without knowing what you are doing. And that is what will land you into a lot of issues. Okay. So thesis is not difficult at all. If you know what you're doing, every single step, why you need to do this, you have to understand. Why you're doing this, you have to understand. So when you understand every single thing that you're doing in your thesis, the journey becomes so fun and interesting. You get more excited. How many of y'all like go crazy if you don't see your thesis every day? How many of y'all go crazy if you don't see your thesis every day?
Me, doctor.
Or how many of you, alamak, have to see my thesis today? The minute you see thesis only, you feel like you want to sleep. So choice is yours. Oh, Azwan. Janganlah Azwan. Right? Okay. After this, Azwan, you'll fall in love with your thesis. Don't worry. Okay, let me share the slides dulu ya. Can you see my slides? Pak Guru?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but small, yes.
Okay. So class, the session, because we have some friends from foreign countries, so I'll conduct mostly in English. If you have question, if you want to ask me in Bahasa, please go ahead. Okay. So here and there, I campur-campur sikit lah ya. Boleh ke? Boleh kan?
Okay, doctor.
Yes,
Boleh,
now
doktor,
better.
boleh.
Okay. Yeah. The problem that we usually face is that what is research proposal? Some of you, especially this question, what is research proposal, is that if you are just embarking on your research journey, that means baru registered, just registered, right? So you will always have this in your mind. What is research proposal? What am I supposed to write? Right? Where do I start? Some people will say we should start from chapter 1. Some will say we'll start from chapter 2. What is your say? Kena start dari bab 1 ke bab 2? You should start from chapter 1 or chapter 2?
Chapter 2, doctor.
Okay, chapter 1. Banyak soalan. You cannot start with chapter 1, you cannot start with chapter 2. So what you should start? Answer is yes, pandai. Yeah. You cannot start with chapter 1, neither you can start with chapter 2 if you don't have a framework. If you don't have a framework, what are you going to write? Boleh tulis tak? If you don't have a framework, can you start writing? Boleh? Tak boleh?
No.
Tak boleh. Right? You don't have a DV, you don't have your variables, you don't have anything, then what am I supposed to write? So the thing, you should know what you should write. Third, where do I start from? Which chapter should I start first? What is citation? Everybody talks about citation, references, things like that. Why I cannot write what I want to write? Why must I cite someone else? Right? Why must I use references? Why must I use latest references? So many things comes into your mind. Because I have seen people writing theses. Sometimes they ask me to check. One whole background of the study, they write like an essay. No citation, no reference. Boleh? Can you do that? Okay. So this person writes background of the study or problem statement based on their observation and based on their own understanding. So they never cite anybody. Boleh ke? Boleh?
Tak boleh.
Okay, right?
Boleh.
Writing because we need investigation and we need support to what we are going to claim, right? And then how many articles? This is another popular questions I sometimes get during my workshops. So when the background of the study, they will ask, Doctor, how many articles enough to write a background of the study? How many articles or how many references sufficient for a background of the study or sufficient for a problem statement? Can anyone answer that question?
It's subjective.
Yes, it's very
Depends on the topic.
right? So we don't have a limitation saying, oh, for PhD, you must have 30. For masters, you have 15. There's no such thing, right? But again, can you like, okay, I see two scenarios. Either one situation, the student doesn't have citations or references at all. In another citation, the student is not doing any argument in the writing. Everything is citation reference. Boleh ke? That means
Tak boleh.
the student doesn't. I mean, we definitely advise we need relevant and sufficient citation and references. Yes, but again, we still have to have your own argument, right? Where is your standpoint? Okay, A said this, B said this, and so what is your take? You need to argue back, right? You need to state based on A, based on B, what is your judgment on that? That part is missing. So that's why how many articles to read is very, very subjective. Another important thing, what theory? How many theory? Okay. And do we have to link the theory to your framework or not? All these things. And how to find DV, how to find IVs. So a lot of confusion. How to get contribution for the study. So nowadays we have a group of students, right? From the time they start the thesis until they finish, they only think about contribution. Yes, contribution is important, but that's not the ultimate thing. So don't keep thinking, oh, if I put this, will I get a contribution? If I put this, can I get a contribution? If you start thinking like that, you will not start writing. It becomes like too mechanical, right? Contribution is important, but that's not everything. Boleh lah satu, when you write your thesis kan, dalam 3-4 contribution cukup lah, right? It's not that every single thing you do, you want to put in a contribution. Then you will never finish writing. Okay? So do you face these questions? Have you come across this question in your journey? Ada tak ada? Class?
Ya.
Kalau tak ada, that means you are not a research student. If you are a research student, definitely you would have faced some of these questions. Betul tak?
Betul.
Okay.
Ya.
So you cannot run away from this question. Maybe you have found your answer and you have evolved, but when we start, definitely all these questions will be playing in our mind. So what is the first thing that I have to do? Initial step. So many of us forget about this initial step. So these initial steps are very, very crucial, okay? So preparing your research proposal, as I told you, we cannot start chapter 1, chapter 2 immediately. We must have that initial step. Initial step is what? Identify focus area. What is your focus area? What is your focus area? When I say focus area, what comes to your mind?
Topik.
A topic. So how do I get the topic?
Issues.
So just tell me.
When we have awareness of any issue, we want to do research.
Yes. Okay.
We have background knowledge.
Your focus area. Can you all see the full view of the slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Ya, Doktor.
Okay. So your focus area is actually your DV. Your dependent variable is the focus area. Actually, your whole thesis basically revolves around your IV or DV. Your whole thesis actually revolves around your IVs or your DV. You start with your DV or you start with your IV.
DV.
DV, our study.
Yes.
DV.
Okay, so DV is our focus area. Yeah. So how do I get my focus area? Okay, if you want to do research, it must have some kind of interest to you, right?
Yes.
Okay, it must have some kind of interest. Please. I just need some cooperation. Class is quite big, so please mute yourself unless you want to say.
Miss Bah, can you please mute?
Okay, so your focus area is our area of interest. Okay, This is one advice that I want to give you. When you want to identify your focus area, go into your interest area, which you have experience. Okay, because I have some students who come to me and say that, oh, doctor, I'm in the marketing line for the past 30 years and I feel so bored. So I want to do something different. I want to go into accounts, or I want to do something in finance. Do you think that's a good idea?
No.
No. And that student doesn't have any financial or accounts background at all. So that means in degree and in her master's, she has not done anything on finance. She has not done anything on accounts. But now she says she wants to try something new. She wants to come out with a contribution. So she doesn't want to do on marketing, but she wants to do on finance. So if I was her supervisor, I will definitely say no. Because research is not about something new, yeah? Something new in your area, yes, not totally a different field. Because when you have something new, okay, example, marketing person doing something on finance. So when this person is going to collect data, right, from the respondent, if the respondent give answers which are not appropriate or anything, do you think this person will understand whether the answers are correct or not?
No.
Right? Definitely no. Okay, example, I'm not from engineering, yeah? So if let's say I want to do something on engineering, do you think it is advisable?
No, it's not.
Not advisable, because if the students give any wrong answer or my respondents give any wrong answer in terms of formulas or equations or whatever, I won't know. Seriously, I won't know because I'm not from the area. So research is not something, I mean, when you're selecting your focus area, don't go into an area that you are alien. Go into an area that you are comfortable. That's our focus area. So now I think you know how to narrow down. So focus area what? All this while you've been working in HR, you're working in organizational behavior, you are working about performance. So try to use a funnel system, go into an area which you are comfortable with. And furthermore, when you understand the area and you read articles on that area, you will understand better rather than reading articles from totally alien areas to you. Okay. So we can actually first identify focus area. Okay. And then do a funnel approach. Okay. Next, you need to find a theory selection. Okay. Theory selection, and make sure you understand the theory and the theory's unit of analysis. So the theory is about or individual level. That's very, very crucial. I'll explain about it in a short while. Yeah. So first, focus area, then approach to find exactly what's your focus area. Okay, and then to find supporting theory which is commonly used in that focus area. And then only we will do our selection of research variables. So once you have selected your research variables, then you can actually finalize your research framework. Once you have done your research framework, that's where you start exploring, you start writing, right? So until here, until this step, until S6, actually you can't start writing because you don't know what to write. You don't have a framework, you don't have a theory, you don't even have a focus area. Then how to write? So sometimes even when your friends or your supervisor asks you, right, what are you going to do in your thesis? You're so confused. What am I going to do in my thesis? I supposed to talk about my DP or I supposed to talk about my IB? You know, so you get, okay, and sometimes I receive students work, right? So when I read their background of the study and when I read their problem statement, I usually get the idea like, you know, that is their DV. Just later part only I'll find out, actually they are talking about IV. They are not talking about DV. So DV is like, you know, submerged. By right, when in your initial part of your chapter 1, which will be your highlight, your DV or your IV?
DV.
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 Your thesis is all about your DV. DV is the issue that you are trying to solve, trying to find out what causes everything. So DV must be the highlight. Okay. So DV must be the highlight of your research. Okay. So this is a very simple funnel system I'm talking about, right? So this is Okay, go back here. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so example, when I was doing my thesis, my interest all the while was in performance because I'm from product, job was in production. So my interest was on production and performance. So I started to do a funnel, right? So I started with the performance. So what exactly I want to know about performance? Okay, when I want to see whether I'm a people person or task person, I found out that I'm actually more of a people person. I like to observe behaviors. I like to read about behaviors. So then I narrow down from performance, I take HRM and behavior. What exactly I want to measure? I want to see how people perform. Because when I talk about performance, we have so many types of performance. We have firm performance, department performance, we have employee performance, financial performance. We have so many performance. But as I told you, I'm not a finance person. My interest was more on behavioral performance, which directly impact the employee performance. So then I narrow down employee performance. So when I talk about employee performance, I want to know which company that I want to focus on, because we have MNCs, we have big companies, we have government agencies, we have so many. My interest during that time was actually on SME because I was working, and I'm a corporate trainer by profession. So I do a lot of corporate trainings for SMEs. So one of the issues faced by SMEs is that managing performance of the employees, because they are very small scale. So they don't have a good policy to manage employee performance. So then I thought, okay, so I see a gap there in SMEs. So that's how I actually narrowed down into SME. Finally, I got my idea. I want to do employee performance in SME, specifically medium manufacturing companies. That's how I got my DV. So then my focus area is what? What will be my focus area here? Based on the funnel system, what will be my focus area here?
Employee performance.
Performance. All right. My scope will be what? My scope.
SME.
SME.
manufacturing.
Yes. Medium manufacturing SME. That will be my scope of study. Scope kajian saya lah. So that is how. So this one, can I do it for you? Boleh saya buat untuk anda tak? Contohnya, if you come for coaching for me, right? Can I do this for you as your supervisor? Can I do this for you?
No.
The research belongs to your research belongs to you or me?
Belong to student.
Belong to student. Funnel must come from you. So don't worry about making mistake. Do as many funnels as you can. You can see something solid there, then catch hold of it. So if anyone asks you in your research, what is your focus area? Remember, we are asking about your DV. So your DV is your focus area. Okay, once I have my focus area, then I can go into this S3, theory selection. So what you do? Go to your literature, then you start selecting. That means you start reading, okay? Popular or theories relating to employee performance. Then you will have a lot of papers that theories relating to employee performance. Then each paper, we can start reading. Okay, this paper on employee performance, what theory they use? Okay, this paper, what theory they use? That paper, what theory they use? So sooner or later, you can actually do theory mapping. So under theory mapping, we can actually get theory frequency, theory mapping, and so many things to finalize what theory that you want to select. So theory selection comes first or framework comes first?
Framework. Theory selection.
Theory.
First.
Okay. Some of you all have attended my class before, right? Pernah ke?
Pernah.
Kalau you all have attended my class, you will know, So theory selection comes first, not the framework, Because in order for me to decide now, I only, like just now, based on the funnel, I only have managed to find my DV. How about my IV? Where am I going to get my IVs? Where am I going to get my IVs?
From theory.
Theory, right? So you need to read.
From theory.
Yes. First, so you need to identify the theory. The theory will give you clues about your IV or mediator or moderator, whatever not like. So your theory will give you some kind of input for your other variable selection. So that's why we are actually quantitative people. Quantitative people, we start with the theory. This is something that many of us keep forgetting. So what you all do, you all just follow the norm of what others are doing. So once you have your DV, you straight away go and read papers and then see what IVs, you play around. It's just like a jigsaw puzzle for you, right? I put this, this paper say this IV can, you put this. And you read another paper, that paper suggests another IV, then you put. So you put, okay, my framework is ready. Betul tak? That's what you do, right? Betul, Salah? Majority of you all do. So where will you get stuck? You don't start with the theory. So once you have identified your DV, and then you just start. So every paper that suggests this, that, you put, and then you play around, suddenly your framework is ready. So where will you get stuck if you use that methodology? Where will you get stuck? Kelas, kenapa hari ni semua lembab aja?
Hujan
Instrument.
ada, jadi lembab.
Kan aku dah cakap semalam, beli teh tarik, beli junk food, beli burger semua, tak beli ke? Right? Okay, so where do you get stuck? When let's say you never start with a theory. You identify your focus area. After that, you went into LR, find papers, and then roughly you solve your jigsaw puzzle, and then you came out a framework. You will get stuck with your theory selection later on, right?
Yes.
That's where
Yes,
We don't know what theory.
Yes. Why? Because you started with the wrong step, right? You did not start with theory selection. You started with variables, right? And every variable is coming from different paper. And every paper is using different theory. Now, which theory I have to use? If I use theory A, these 3 variables cannot be explained. If I use theory B, these 2 pula cannot explain. If I use theory C, DV cannot be explained. Now, which theory that I have to use? So you start having more theories now. And sometimes when you have more theories, is another headache because theory has a unit of analysis. Some theory like resource-based theory, that one is for firm level. Social exchange theory is for individual level. So can you mix firm level theory and individual level theory in one framework?
Cannot.
Cannot.
no.
Actual correction. God bless you. Okay. So you will have other issues. So what am I to do? Framework ready. Once your framework ready, you can actually immediately do your research question, research objective, and hypothesis. As I always tell you, research question, research objective, and hypothesis can be done less than 30 minutes when your framework is ready. But the most difficult part is the theory selection. So that's why if you follow these steps, what I put here, start with the theory. Once you have identified your focus area, which is your DB, you need to go and do a theory because the theory gives you a lot of input. What kind of variable is falls under that theory? What will be the areas and everything. So that will give you that will help you to streamline what kind of variables that you can actually select for your framework. So there are two types of theory. One is theory with variables and another one is theory without variables. So I don't want to go too deep into it because we got many other things to discuss. But that's how we do it. So start with the theory. So imagine we already have a theory for this framework. So I have 4 IVs and 1 DV. So the arrow coming out is called as exogenous. The arrow going in is endogenous, but don't worry about this. This is mostly used for chapter 4, data analysis. So once you go into chapter 4, once you go into Smart PLS doesn't know what is IVDV. Smart PLS only know arrow come out, arrow go in. So during that analysis part, we usually use the word exogenous and endogenous. So, but anyway, based on this, we can actually very, very fast, we can come out with a with a research question, research objective, and hypothesis. Okay. Okay. So now so from here I've already finalized my framework, which is supported by a theory. So this whole framework is supported by social action theory. Just give me 1 minute, yeah. Just 1 minute. Yeah. So far you all are okay or not? Boleh faham ah? Fast for you all?
Okay, Doctor.
Okay,
Doctor.
Jangan panik ya. Wow, doktor ajar saya tak buat ni semua. Tak payah panik. You still have time to betulkan lah ya. Okay. Okay. So this is a framework. This is a framework. And this framework is supported by theory. Why supported by theory? Because started with a theory. Like example in my study also, I started with a theory. Once I have identified the theory, after that only I went down to read and select variables which can actually fit into the theory. So that's why we say theory fit. We want to see, remember we are quantitative people, we want to see how far the framework that we have established fits into the theory. So fit there. And that is so if most of your hypothesis is supported, that means your framework fits well into the theory. If most of our hypothesis is not supported, the variables doesn't fit into the theory. And that's our contribution back. So which variable is supported by the theory, which variable is not supported by the theory, that's actually our finding becomes our contribution back. Okay. So most important here is what? We must have a theory. Based on the theory, we will be variable selection. Okay. And then we have unit of analysis. You have to know your theory is an individual or firm level. And most important, definition. Okay, so when do we do this definition and instruments for variables? When do you select the definition and instrument for your variables? Instrument means the measure, you know. So when do we do that? Class?
Past researcher.
No. When do you do that? At which stage of your research you will start looking for measurement to measure your variables? Mostly when you all will do in chapter 3, right?
Chapter 3.
Yes.
In chapter 3.
Yes, yes, that's right.
You will start looking for measurement in chapter 3, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone here have attended my instrument development class? Anyone have attended my instrument development class?
Yes, Doctor.
When must we look for instrument? Is it chapter 3 or in the initial stage itself?
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Initial stage.
From
Initial stage.
the beginning.
From
Yeah.
initial stage.
Yes. You must start looking for instrument from the initial stage. Reporting is in chapter 3. Where do you report? It's in chapter 3. We won't talk about instrument in chapter 1, chapter 2. We will talk about instrument in chapter 3. But when is the time we have to start looking for instrument is when? Starting from the very beginning. So once your framework is ready, you have to start looking why. Why I am going to report this in chapter 3, but why should I start looking for instrument from the very beginning? Why? Why? Alah, janganlah quiet sangat.
Supaya tak ada masalah masa collect data.
Have you all pernah tak dengar? Have you all heard this story? Yeah? You already do, maybe it's not for you lah, maybe for your friends. Okay, maybe your friend have already done the framework, already got a theory. Okay, chapter 1, done writing for chapter 1. done writing for chapter 2. When she comes to chapter 3, when she is going to write about instrument, she cannot find instrument to measure one of the variable. What will she do?
Yeah, I faced that. Yeah.
Okay, ada rasa nak menangis tak? You feel like crying or not? Menangis kan?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
as we are all quantity people. If you don't have measurement, how to measure the variable? We are not doing qualitative, we are not doing interview, we are doing questionnaire development. That means you have to collect data from your survey. So every single variable must have measurement to measure the variable. So let's say suddenly PAF, I find everywhere in the literature, there's no scale developed to measure PAF. So what am I going to do now? You want to develop the scales for PAF?
No.
You
No.
forget, God bless you lah, another 10 years.
Drop variable.
You need to drop the variable. And if you drop the variable, the changes will start from where? Chapter 1, right?
Yes.
Yes. So that's why don't ever do that, right? The minute you establish your framework, you don't have to go and streamline the instrument yet. I just say go and check for definition. The reason why I want you to identify the definition because your instrument must be aligned to your definition. So you need to do a mapping. Yeah, we need to do a mapping. So what we map, example, you go and do performance appraisal. This is a PAF, right? So for PAF, go and see from the latest articles, how many definitions are there. You do a mapping of the definition. From the mapping of the definition, then you map for instruments. Roughly how many papers have published instrument for PAF? So if you have more than 4 or 5, more than 5 will be good lah. 4 or 5, then you don't have to choose the instrument now. But as long when you do the mapping, there are about 5 scholars have different type of scales to measure PAF, roughly. Then okay lah, you are quite safe. Okay. But in the initial stage itself, when you go and check scale for PAF, then do you think, is it advisable for you use PAF in your framework? Is it advisable? Kalau cari-cari tak dapat.
No.
Initial stage pun tak dapat, and if you're going to continue using that variable, you're asking for trouble. So class, if you join my classes, I don't teach shortcuts, yeah. I only teach you systematic and structured way. I don't believe in shortcuts because shortcuts are always asking for troubles, right? So structured way, first make sure you are confident and you are very sure you won't have problem when you go to chapter 3 to find instrument. Okay, another problem why we cannot find instrument, sometimes we like to use layman language as our variable. Layman language? Do you know what is a layman language?
Yes.
Okay, example, I have like employee performance. Okay, employee performance, from based on my working experience, employee performance is influenced by a lot of money. So I say, I think if I want my workers to give me a good performance, then I think a lot of money. One of the things which moves them to give better performance is lot of money. Do you think there is a scale to measure lot of money?
No.
No.
So lot of money is a pen language, right? So unless I need to go back to the LR and look, maybe I need to change it to what? Rewards. Maybe, or I can change it to rewards, or I can put it as financial rewards. But this one I need to justify based on what? LR. What's being used in LR, and how the measurements are named as. So this is coming from the LR, literature review. It's not, if you use layman, some of your layman language. So that's why sometimes I ask you, how did you get this variable? Then you say, no, from my work experience. Right or wrong? Right or wrong?
Wrong.
Wrong.
So for
Wrong.
yes, for a approach, you can use layman language because you're just trying to get your idea first, right? We are just trying to get some idea of what I want to do. You can use layman language. But once we come to narrow down, when you're coming, you need to go and check. Your layman language in LR is called as what? So just now I say lot of money, but in LR, it's not called as lot of money, right? It's about financial rewards, financial gains or something like that, right? So here, everything must be a language from the LR. The terminologies that we are using to set your variable, it must come from LR, not your day-to-day spoken language. Because otherwise you can't source out for definition, you can't source for instruments to measure that. You will have problems because I still see students doing that, right? So you have to know that, okay? So once we have done, now you know that your whole framework is actually individual. We cannot have mix. We cannot have some variables individual, some variables firm level. Actually, we call that as hierarchical analysis, but it's very, very complicated. To be easy, theory must be only on one level. Individual means individual, firm means firm. And in your framework, your variables must be in the same level to ease things up, okay? Now, once you have this, once your framework is ready, you quickly can start doing your research questions, your research objectives, and your hypotheses. Your research question, research objective, and hypothesis, are they aligned together?
Yes.
Yes.
Should be aligned.
Yes. Okay. So there is a new way of, okay, your research questions and your hypotheses must be closely aligned. So your research objective, for me, if my student, I will ask them to be aligned. But again, some examiners, they feel like research question and research objective is just like repeating the same thing. Alright. Kalau yang ini tanya, does HRM practices? Here also to investigate the impact of HRM practices. So it's like repeating the same thing. Maybe the way of writing is different. This is a question, this is a statement, right? So that's why some examiners, they prefer research question. Yes, it has to be in a question form, and this one must be aligned to the hypothesis. But research objective, they allow the student to write overall. So that means the numbers in the research question. Like usually in my class, I teach 5 research questions must have 5 research objectives. But some examiners, they don't follow this. They say that, research question must be aligned to hypothesis, but research objective, you can write just overall 1 or 2 research objectives. Okay, that one, I leave it to you and your supervisor and your examiner. But if yes, definitely I'll ask them to align. Research question and research objective, I will tell them it must be in the same number. Okay? Hunger. Okay.
Betul.
Okay. And nowadays, no more non-directional hypothesis. All your hypotheses must be directional. What's the difference between directional and non-directional? This is non-directional. Non-directional means it will not show positive or negative. Directional means it will show positive or negative. So nowadays, we don't allow non-directional anymore. All your hypothesis has to be directional. And you don't use the word significant. Significant comes in the analysis, the finding. So you just write here, TD has a positive impact on or effect on EE in SME's measure. This is the new way of writing your hypothesis. Okay, girl?
Okay, Doctor, one question from the chat.
Yes, Rafi?
Why is the stress on skills being recent always? Sometimes the older skills have universal appeal as well. Isn't the context of the study more important? By Connectives Consultant.
Wait, I need to see the chat first. Prof, why is the stress on skills being recent always? Sometimes the older skills have universal appeal as well. Isn't the context of the study? It depends, connective, it depends on the thing, okay? So doesn't mean that scale, I don't know, what do you mean by recent always? So no, we, like scale is not about recent or old ones. As long as the scales, whether recent or old ones, are original from the scale developer is important. Second, whether old or new scales, whether they are measuring what you intend to measure in your study. That means they are reflecting your definition. These two criteria is very, very important. One, the scale must measure what it intend to measure in your definition. Second, it must be from the original. As much as possible, try to get the scale from the original scale developer, not from those who have adapted the original thing. So that two things are important. Yeah. Elma, doctor, let's say one of my IV is vendor support, but other studies use the term technology vendor support, but both of them are referring to same meaning, which is support gained from ICT. My question is, I can use any one of the terms, okay? Say sama ada vendor, okay. Elma boleh. Tapi in your LR, there must be under vendor support. Let's say you want to use vendor support lah ya for your variable. Then di bawah vendor support, you must have a subtopic to actually write about the perspective. That means this paper, their perspective is what, this paper, the perspective of what, and then you build your argument there saying that even though both are in different terminologies, but dia punya perspective adalah sama, macam tu. Then kalau macam tu memang boleh. Okay, Alma? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Welcome. No, framework must be in one unit of analysis. So we cannot have a mix between individual and firm into one framework. Then you'll have also problem selecting your theory later. So try to keep everything individual, means all are individual. Firm level means all your variables. Tak kisahlah mediator, moderator, everything will be in your same unit of analysis. Okay. Okay, I'll go back to the slide. Yeah. Any question later? Yeah, I'll come back. So fast, going to be 8:50 already. Okay. So, okay, so this is how we write our this thing. That's why I tell you all, when your framework is ready, this part, we can actually complete writing this part in less than 30 minutes. Okay. So again, there's a lot of development in the way we actually write your research question, research objective, and hypothesis. There's a latest development in research. Can't go very detailed later when I have theoretical development class, or for those who are coming for bootcamp, then I'll touch on this in detail. Yeah. So we will actually explore and we make sure that we write the correct thing, okay, based on our current development. Okay. So, okay. Anyway, this table, even though in your thesis, your research question and research objective comes in which chapter? Chapter mana? RQ and R. Chapter 1, right?
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Your hypothesis comes in which chapter?
Chapter 1. 1.
Some
Chapter 3.
yes, some universities chapter 3, some universities chapter 2. But to me lah, the correct place to park your hypothesis is in chapter 2, right after your framework development. Framework development, hypothesis development, and framework development. Where are you going to framework, research framework? That is where the hypothesis must come. But I don't know why in some universities it's like, you know, here, there, but maybe they have their justification, which I am not aware of. I don't know. But whatever is it, wherever it comes, right? Whether it's in chapter 1, whether it's in chapter 2, whether it's in chapter 3, way of writing is still the same. So let's not argue on little things like that. So wherever you're going to park it, just follow your thesis guideline. Follow your university's thesis guideline. because the university has spent so many years establishing the guidelines, so we have to respect it and we have to follow it. Otherwise, you will get a correction pula. So follow. It's not the same for all the universities. Okay, like I'm from UUM, so in my school, hypothesis development and framework came in chapter 3. I did it in chapter 2. Then during PD, they asked me to push to chapter 3. Like some universities, it comes in chapter 2. Okay, so some universities, research framework comes in chapter 1. But hypothesis comes in chapter 2. Ikut lah je. Just follow lah ya. Follow your universities ya. Okay. I roughly have explained about the overall part. Clear? Now I'm going to go into structuring already. We are going to go a bit more deeper into 3 chapters, which this is where I need more time. That's why I quickly finished that. So far, okay, right? Clear?
Okay.
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 So far, try to flashback on your thesis. Have you all done everything correctly, or you feel that you have some correction to be done?
A lot.
A lot. Okay, janganlah sedih, right? Never mind, right? You can do it, right? As long as we know where we are going wrong or where we have done wrong, at least we still have time to improvise it, okay? So it's actually good. We cannot even though we can talk a lot to you all because I've completed it. But when I was doing also, I did 101 mistakes as well. And so many times, I don't know lah. My thesis, chapter 1, chapter 3, chapter 2, chapter 3, don't know how many drafts I would have done, right? Until I forgot count and I forgot which draft is the latest pun ada juga, okay? So that's quite normal, right? We can never write at one time all correct. No. But when you start attending workshops, you learn the writing, you reduce the percentage of making mistakes, right? So that is the advantage. Okay. Okay. Now I have done that means I have established. So here, initial stage all done. Now I've come out with my focus area. I used a funnel approach. I came out with a focus area, and then I started to select the theory, and then I started to select the variables. Now my research framework is final. I've already finalized. So once my research framework is ready, that means I already do my research question. I've already come out with my research objective, my hypothesis. So all this is done. So initial step, I'm done. I've cleared my initial step. Now, which chapter I should start first? So the initial stage means, the initial step means it's still not going into the chapter yet. Yeah, I've not really gone into the chapter. That means what I meant by initial step means I need to do this before actually I can embark on writing my chapters. Faham ke? I've not started writing my chapters yet. I'm just prepared with the initial step. So the initial step, so some students will ask, Doctor, how long will I take to complete my initial step? Roughly about 1 semester. You need at least 1 semester to actually do this. It's not a very fast kind, we can't do this in 1 week, 2 weeks, because in order for us to do this, you need to read a lot, right? So you need to do a lot of mapping, you need to do a lot of reading before, even for theory selection also, it takes up a lot of time. Theory selection is not easy. You need to read about a lot of theories before you can actually narrow down into what theory exactly you want to select and why. You need to have a very strong justification for your theory selection. It's not like it's not something like oh, okay, I want to use this theory, right? Can I tell to my supervisor, I want to use social exchange theory because I like the theory. Can I use that as justification?
No.
Doctor.
No, right? So I need to have some kind of data. That means I need to do some kind. Data analysis doesn't come only in chapter 4, yeah? The data analysis is based on your questionnaire. But in other chapters, you have data analysis. That means, example, I write 100 papers. Now I have 100 papers. So 100 papers are my data. In that 100 papers, I want to use which theory was used the most. that is also data analysis, right? You will get something like this. This is also an example, choice of theories in example resilience studies, right? So you see, these are the theories which have been used in studying resilience studies. So out of 100 papers, contohlah 100 papers, 23 papers have used resource-based theory, another 7 has used relational view, another 7 has used dynamic capability. So this is also data analysis, right? Betul kan?
Yes.
Yes, correct,
Yes,
correct.
doctor.
Many of you think data analysis means only start in chapter 4. Yes, that chapter 4 is based on your questionnaire, the data that we collect through questionnaire. But in other 3 chapters, we still do data analysis. We can do thematic analysis, we can do frequency analysis, we can do so many analysis. And in order for us to do all these analyses, we still need data. We still need data, right? So we still need data, many types of data in order for us to justify why I want to select this theory, why I want to select this variable, why I want to select this as the mediator, why I want to select this as a moderator. So for all these, I need data to justify my selection. I cannot come there and say, I want to select this as my mediator because I like this. I want to do this as a moderator because I like this. Because my friend tell me. No, you cannot. You need data to support. That is the part which becomes very difficult. That is the part which you all struggle. Selecting, roughly you all select. But when I ask you a question, being your examiner or being your supervisor, if I ask you a question, right? Like Rafi, why did you select this theory? Macam mana nak jawab? Right? So example, Rafi, why did you select ABC theory for resilience, for studying resilience? Macam mana nak jawab? Pening kan?
Yes,
But if I have data, easy or not?
easy.
Easy. So you need to explore, friends. As I told you from when I started our talk today. As I told you initially, research is not hard. But you have to know what you are doing. The problem with us is that we are clueless. We are clueless. We don't know how to justify. So you need to start thinking, if I want to use this, why? What kind of data that I can collect in order for me to justify that why I want to use this. So the idea comes from us. So the more you explore, the more you read, you actually have a lot of knowledge. Now you need to conceptualize the knowledge into a data and do mapping. I go into mapping a lot because one of the easiest way to justify your selection or or your rejection or your selection is actually when you have data and you do mapping, right? So that's why in my most of my workshops, I'll be like, teaching you all a lot about mapping. We have many types of mapping. I'm not talking about like, you need to apply all the mapping that you learn, you need to apply in your thesis. Just select what is relevant. So just select what is relevant, right? Not everything will be relevant to our study. So this is where you need to be very analytical and critical. So when you attend multiple workshops, that doesn't mean you have to apply everything. Apply what is relevant to your study. Not everything will be relevant to everybody's study. So you have to know that, okay? So now, what is the chapter that I should start? Did I type this wrongly? After I finish the initial stage, I put here as chapter 2. Is my slide wrong? All right.
Right.
Okay. Many of us, when you finish your initial, once you have your framework, usually you start with chapter 1 or chapter 2. Chapter 1 kan?
Yes.
Honestly answer lah.
Yes.
You straight away, after finish your initial stage, especially once you're done with your framework, the next thing you will jump to chapter 1. Mana aku punya chapter 1 ni? Okay. You will jump into chapter 1. So once you finish your initial framework, when you jump into chapter 1, you will start writing your background of the study and problem statement. Research objective, research question, no problem because you're already done when you're doing your framework. you would have done your objective and RO, RQ, right? You just copy paste here lah. But usually when you go into chapter 1, you will write what? Background and problem statement, right?
Right.
Yes.
Do you struggle?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I will say yes.
If you finish your initial stage, that means you have already settled with your framework. Now you straight away come into chapter 1. You will start writing background of the study and you will start writing problem statement. What are the issues you will face? What are the issues that you will face?
Don't know what to write.
Yes.
Gaps. We have to find the gaps.
You need to find gaps. You don't know what to write, don't know how to start. And most of the time, your background and problem statement will be talking about same thing or similar writing. That's the feedback that you usually will get during your PD as well. Betul tak? I don't see any difference between your background and problem statement. Betul tak? Alright?
Betul.
Right? Because why? Why I don't encourage you? Because you see, once you finish your initial stage, when you straight away you jump into your background or problem statement, you have not really gone through a lot of articles yet. The initial stage you have read mostly about what? In the initial stage, you read papers in order for you to do what?
Theory.
Theory. Mostly it's about theory and variable selection. Betul tak? Correct? So you don't really look into the in-depth discussion in the paper. So basically, and now with AI, lagi lah. Mostly you will use your AI to see the papers in terms of theory selection and variable selection only. You don't actually see the issues in the paper. So your issues about gap is still very narrow. Actually, you still don't have sufficient knowledge to write a good background and problem statement. So that's why you see some supervisors will ask you to do what? Some supervisors, they will usually won't allow you to write your chapter 1. They will ask you to write what? Chapter 2. Betul tak?
Betul.
Yes.
Chapter 2.
Betul.
Speak your chapter 2.
We need LR.
Because there are students who came to me and say, Doctor, something is wrong with my supervisor. I say, why? Right? I finished my framework. He asked me to write chapter 2. I think something is wrong with him. We should start with chapter 1, right? So how do I answer the student? How to answer the student?
Follow your SP.
Follow SB.
So nice person lah. I say the supervisor is okay. Something is wrong with you. Right. So actually your supervisor is fine, but I think something is wrong with you. Right? No lah, just kidding lah. Okay. So the reason why, I mean, everybody have their own way of doing things, but to me, if you come to me, I'll ask you to start with chapter 2, because in chapter 2, what do you do? What do you do in chapter 2?
Read.
Review. Reporting other works.
LR.
Yes.
Metric table. Find them.
Fluffy.
More LR.
We go where a lady.
So in chapter 2, what you do, you read and read and read and read until you feel that, you know, your brain going to burst, or you feel that, alamak, sudah tak boleh lah, right? So much. So you read, you report, you read, you report, you report. So when you're reading, you will come across, and you also there's one subtopic called gap activities, right? So in chapter 2, you explore a lot about the gap, the theories, your conceptualization and everything. So now, once you have finished your chapter 2, can you please? Okay, so in chapter 2, when you read and read and read, because you need to look for defining, you have to conceptualize them, you need to identify gap, you actually start understanding your research area much better. You know what is actually happening in your research through your chapter 2, not through your chapter 1. So that's why we start with chapter 2 first. Believe me, if you can spend about 3 to 4 months in structuring and writing your chapter 2, I think after that, when you come to chapter 1, it's just, chapter 1 becomes just like your fingertips already. You can actually write your chapter 1 very fast. Most of y'all, if after initial stage, if you start with chapter 1 only, you will struggle a lot. You don't really understand your research yet. You have not gone so deep. So that's why you struggle. You don't know what to write in background. You don't know what is a problem statement, and you start writing everything similar. So what we do is that we start with chapter 2. Okay. This is just the, whatever I have put here, right, is all the key topics only, not in detail, the key topic. These are the important topics you must have under each chapter. Okay. So in chapter 2, what do we have is, one is your theoretical underpinning. Okay, very important is theoretical underpinning, right? What is theoretical underpinning? That doesn't matter lah, theoretical underpinning or underpinning theory, it's just the same. So you start off with your theory. Okay, so is it very easy to write about theory? Senang tak?
Not.
Very, very difficult. Believe me, very difficult. Because your examiner comes from various background, right?
Yes, doctor.
Because
Yes.
you got so many variables in your framework. Maybe your examiner comes from one variable. Maybe he's not familiar with other variable. So sometimes they will push us to use the theory that they are familiar. So how to decline? How to decline? Is it that you must follow their advice or must not follow their advice? What?
Actually, dear prof, from my side, how I did the chapter 2, I did actually filtration. I used to collect all the like thesis and which I feel that it was matched with my expectations, and I done with it. But later on, what happened? It will happen somehow. I won't use the word clash, but I will say that the supervisor will say no. Whatever you did, okay. What you think is enough? No, it's not enough. You have to add other things from his perspective, from the SV perspective, and that's the challenge. Because later on, me as a candidate, I have to just think how the SV is thinking, and then try to match his theory and his thinking and his beliefs with my own beliefs. And here will be the challenge.
Yeah, I know. That's why the chemistry, So that's why we always tell you must have a good chemistry between yourself and your supervisor, right?
Yeah, because the SB always think that whatever theories I collect or whatever papers I collect is not enough. You still have to do more. But then the candidate or I will reach at level that if I'll add something extra, it's like I'm dealing with something and adding something which I'm not really familiar enough with it. So what if I just add things which is really not enough? This will exhaust me later on. So that's the challenge really which we used to face while doing the chapter 2.
Yeah, correct. Okay. But still, I teach you all how to do but the rest with your SV, you need to work out some methodology or some chemistry how things can work. But try to do a comprehensive work, especially when you are doing the theoretical underpinning, right? So there is actually two schools. Okay, one school says that straight away, once you have selected the theory, only talk about that theory. Okay, that's one school. Another school says that, first of all, you give a picture of few theories which are quite popular in your area. After that, only you give your justification out of that many, which one that you are going to select, why. So that's two sides of the story line. So this part, you need to fine tune, and you also have to get the agreement with your supervisor as well, which method that you use, okay? Okay, so
Yeah.
sorry?
Doctor?
Yeah, at the end I have to follow the SV at the end because SV is always correct.
That's normal. Everybody goes through that, right?
Okay, doctor,
Yes.
is it wise to just keep one theory or can I have two theory?
Okay, that's soalan cepumas lah, $1 million question. According to research practices, we usually encourage students to use one theory. So if your framework can settle down in one theory is actually very, very good. But I don't know, some universities have different perspective. Some universities, they have a clause that means if you are a PhD student, you must have 2 theories and above. Okay, so
The suggestion given to me was 1 theory, 1 model.
yes, that's what I also encourage students, because when you start combining more than 1 theory, you have issues later if both the theories are not homogeneous to each other. So that's why and another thing, if your framework can settle down in 1 theory is good, but there's no research telling the more theories is more contribution or more theories is better. Tak ada pun. So if your university allows you to just stick to 1 theory, if the university, that means have no problem, no problem when the students just use 1 theory, as long as they are able to explain all the variables within that theory. If no problem, like UUM, we don't have problem. But other universities, I'm not so sure, right? So again, we all want to complete our studies, follow the university guideline, okay? But sorry, who was that?
Doctor,
Yes.
I have a question. For example, like my DV is something like a little bit cross domain. Mine is change management. So it's about human resource and also a little bit on innovation. So while I'm explaining about the theory, I'm just focusing on the change management, or also I can add on a little bit on this HR theory and others. What's your advice?
No, if your original theory can explain a variable from other discipline, then it becomes a contribution. But if it is not able to explain, then you need to include another theory. Okay? Understand, girl?
Yeah,
Betul?
thank you.
So it's So it's actually very important, yeah. Okay, let's say we also have theory contribution, yeah. Theory contribution means, okay, a theory will definitely come with certain variables, or a theory will explain the relationship between variables. Some theory comes with variables. Some theory, they don't suggest any variables, but they explain the relationship between variables, like social exchange theory. Under social exchange theory, we don't have suggested variables, but they only suggest the relationship of reciprocity. That means if you give something, you will receive something, right? So in that context, if you want to introduce something new to the theory, a new variable into the theory, it becomes a contribution to the theory. Okay, the same thing. There is another set of theory which comes with variables, suggested variables. And when you want to include a new variable, and after you include that new variable into the theory, and then the finding is also positive, then it becomes a contribution. That means a new variable was introduced into the theory. So it becomes a contribution as well, right? Can be done. But again, if the theory is not able to explain certain variables in your framework, then you need to actually merge with another theory. If the theory is coming from a different discipline, make sure this theory and that first theory is homogeneous. They don't contradict with each other, and they also are in the same unit of analysis. So this part you need to be a bit clear. Yeah, unit of analysis is very, 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 very important. So most of the time you don't know what is unit of analysis until you come to chapter 3. So actually it starts from the very early stage itself. Please look into the unit of analysis for your theory as well. Okay, what is it? Somebody asked me just now. Siapa yang tanya soalan tadi?
Hi, Doctor. Muiz here.
Yes.
Based on your recommendation just now, for example, my study is involving a comparative. So comparative on A and B. So each of these is having a separate theory. So mean to say you are suggesting for this one to have a separate framework for each theory?
Your framework must be only one, right? You're doing comparison in what sense? Group or framework?
Group.
That means you're using one group, but you are going to do comparison between 2 set of respondents.
Yes, more or less.
That means masih guna satu teori aja.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so first you have to do this theoretical underpinning lah. So that means theory selection. So theory selection is not as easy as you think, because for one focus area, just example like for employee performance, right? They have actually, when you go through papers, so different paper have used different theories. So what I can do is that I can actually come out and do a frequency. And this is one mapping that we can do. We can do frequency mapping. So choices of theory, okay? Example, choices of theories which I've studied about. Let's say that assume that my DV is studies, okay? So when I'm doing on resilience studies, I can take about 50 papers, and out of the 50, I see how many papers have used resource-based theory, how many have used this, how many have used this, and then I come out with the frequency. So we are analyzing the data. And this is the sources lah, papers that we have of these things, okay? So I dapat 23. So from here, I can use this frequency analysis of theory to justify that I want to stick to resource-based theory, because this is the one which is mostly used, okay? Or I can even turn around and say the least used is normal accident, only 3. So there is a lot of gap here, because not many people, not many studies have used normal accident to study on resilience studies. So this study want to close the gap by using normal accident theory in order to study resilience studies. Yang itu pun boleh juga, yeah? So this is one way. This one is another way of doing mapping. So example like this one, that this part I used in my thesis lah, yeah. Okay. This one I used in my thesis. So example, I put all my variables. I wanted to show which theory is able to see all the variables in my study. So these are all my variables in the study. Okay, these are all the variables in my study. So I wanted to like EP, training, all these are variables. So I selected a set of theories, and then I showed like EP has used SCT, training has used SCT, appraisal, and sorry, I didn't show one part. I have one variable called ICT. So ICT usage never use SCT. Usually ICT usage have used TAM, UTA, TO, and this one, right? And also TPB, but never use SCT. So I use this to show a gap. So I say there is a gap where ICT usage has never been studied under the lens of social exchange theory. So my study wants to close the gap by introducing SCT in studying ICT. So I use that as this thing, and that is also part of my contribution, where I introduce ICT usage variable under social exchange theory. So that's how I wrote my part, right? So this is one way of writing as well. Okay, Faham?
Clear, Doctor.
I have a question.
Okay, so there's many ways of doing this matrix table. This example this is 2 lah, yeah. Actually, there's few more. We don't have much time to show everything, but this is roughly you can start figuring out, how. Okay, so and another thing that you all can use is that when you are writing about theory, there is 2 tools for this. One is start by introducing a few theories, and then only you justify which theory that you want to select. That's one way. Another one is that straight away you start with a matrix table. That means you do theory gap analysis and then or frequency analysis, and then straight away you say you select which theory you want to use, and then start explaining the theory. That you don't have to actually explain all the theories. You just show this table, and then from this table you can actually tell that resource-based theory is the one which has highest frequency. So this study will actually adapt resource-based view theory and something like that. Okay, so that is what you have to write under theoretical underpinning. Okay, once you have done the theory part, now we will start with defining and conceptualization of variables. So defining and conceptualization. So example, each variable in your framework, we need to do defining and conceptualization for each variable. So we start with DV, followed by IV, and then followed by mediator, moderator. And if you have control variables, you also use that control variables. So you need to define. Can I, when I'm doing defining of a variable, can I just use one definition or multiple definitions?
Choose one.
No, you have to use multiple, but finally you need to choose one.
Multiple.
Yes, you use multiple and then finally you have to come to, so you have A defined it like this, B defined it like this, C defined it like this. So as a conclusion, this study will follow which definition? So you need to follow that particular definition. Okay, so that's how. And then only we will start conceptualizing. Okay, what is conceptualizing? What's the difference between defining and conceptualization? Here also banyak students tak faham. Many students don't understand between these two. So when I read that part, right, the variable explanation, you mix up everything.
Defining is just you define the variable, and conceptualization how this definition will be implemented and used in your study.
Yeah, okay. Good. So defining is different, conceptualization is two different things. These two things are not the same. So you start with the defining first. So example like so let's say I have 2.2. I write it as employee performance. Okay, this is my DV, right? So this is my DV. So I'm going to start writing here. So first thing I will do what? I will write about definition. So there's many way of writing definitions. So some people will write definition in a paragraph form. Some people, they will use table. So up to your lah, whichever way you want to use. Like for me, I use table format. Okay. So table format means I just did like this. Okay. So I put here source, and this is definition. Okay, let's say this is from Ali 2024, what he wrote, okay? What did Ali define about employee performance? Okay, so I write it here lah, yeah. So Ali said this, and then here I put here Ahmad 2023, okay, what Ahmad said here, and then let's say Jason 2021, what Jason said here, okay, so and then so on. So after that, below here, okay, below here, so I start, okay, based on various definition above, okay, so it can be concluded there is no one universal definition to explain about employee performance. So for this study, which definition will be used as the key definition for this study? So you conclude that. Okay. Faham? Can you all understand?
Yes, understood.
This is one very easy way of doing, right? But some people, they don't like to use table. Then if you don't like to use table, you put everything in a paragraph. So when you put in paragraph, you don't like to use, I think someone mute, please. Okay, so I don't like to use too much of paragraph. Siapa yang kena mute ya?
Okay, I already mute.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I don't like to use paragraph, you know why? Do you like to use paragraph?
No.
Why? That I like.
Not to read too many things.
We only use paragraph to fill the word requirements.
when you use paragraph, you need to write a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly, doctor.
Yeah, you need to write a lot. Sometimes if your coherence is not good, some of you naturally you have very good way of relating, right? But some of us we are not so good in the coherence part. So to avoid to reduce the impact on that, we can actually reduce. So you introduce a table and then down conclusion, then you just do a short paragraph there. So once you have finished your definition, so let's say definition table and this, it becomes like 1 or 2 paragraph. So followed by the next paragraph. Okay. Now the next paragraph pula. So this is second paragraph. What will you be writing about the second paragraph is conceptualization. Conceptualization. Okay, we conceptualize because what conceptualize means, okay, example, employee performance. So employee performance is a very general term. So you need to explain what employee performance means in the context of your study. That is conceptualization. That means you need to explain what EP means employee performance. Conceptualization means you need to explain what EP means based on the context of your study. That is conceptualization. So you need to go and look for papers which have explained EP. Okay, you need to look for papers which have explained EP based on what you intend to study. So example, if you are doing, Rafi, tell me one variable. What's your DV, Rafi? Anxiety something, right?
Family functioning, doctor.
Okay. Kalau if Rafi, you read about 10 papers, even though they are about family functioning, do you think all the 10 papers about family functioning explains exactly what you are going to do in your research?
No.
There may be about 3 or 4 papers, right? So
Yes.
the papers which are explaining, even though all the papers using same terminologies, but they're not telling about what you intend to do in your study. So you need, out of the 10 papers, you select which are the papers telling, explaining exactly what you intend to do in your study. And that are the papers that you will take in conceptualizing this term.
Prof, this also means that if you are looking at a certain definition, you can look at the industry that you intend to study for your study or the sample. Does that also include in conceptualizing the definition?
But definition is different, but the paper where you are selecting, let's say you took the definition from Ali, right? So after writing, if you look at Ali's paper, after he defined employee performance, later he will go on to explain the term, right? First, he will give a definition and then below they will actually explain about the variable, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you are taking a paper, they will not just give a definition. They will give a definition. After then, they move on to explain the concept. That part also will go into your conceptualization. So the very simple thing, when I read the conceptualization part, I understand exactly what that variable means, if the variable means in the context of your study. And that is conceptualization. So do you have to write a lot? Do you have to write a lot? No, definition and conceptualization is just between like about 1 to 1.5 pages. Don't write too much. I have seen people writing 3-4 pages. The more you write, the more correction you will get. The more disoriented way of writing the risk of disorientation will be also be very high. So somewhere around 1 to 1.5 page is just fine. Cukup definition followed by conceptualization.
Doctor, Is the conceptual definition and operational definition what you are explaining now?
Which one?
There is a part where we write the conceptual definition and operational definition.
Not conceptual definition, key term definition. You mean key term? The definition only got two, yeah? Key term definition and operationalized definition. Right? So your conceptual or construct definition is key term definition, yeah?
Okay.
Right?
That means it's from the instrument that I chose to.
So it depends. It depends. If the instrument comes with definition, good story lah. But some papers, some instrument, they don't come with the definition. Then you need to adapt the definition from a different paper, but you need to make sure the definition and the instrument, they are aligned together.
Okay, doctor.
And not all those who develop a scale, they actually come out with a definition. If you're lucky, yes. Sometimes they don't. So then you need to match and make sure it matches well. That means the definition is what the measurement is trying to measure. Okay. So you need to repeat this for all the variables. So once you have done this, then you will go into gaps in the LR, the most important part and the most overlooked part as well. Yeah? The most important highlight of your chapter 2 is actually your gap analysis. Once you can catch hold of your gap, so once you can catch hold of your gap, that means you have a very good grip on your research. Because the most important thing in chapter 1 and chapter 2 that the examiners will look into is actually your gap. Yeah. So how do I find gap? There are many ways to find gaps. This is one method. So this one, we call it as thematic gap, thematic analysis. Okay, we can actually use a thematic analysis to find out the gap. So what you do from the very beginning. So when you start your research, when you have started your research, you know, as you read papers, every paper you read, you actually do the mapping. So you can actually do this in Excel or something like that. So you do your gap. So first paper, you read what gap you find out and then try to categorize the gap. But so many types of gap. We have knowledge gap, we have methodology gap, population gap, industrial gap, method gap, you know, what else? What other gaps you have? Theoretical gap, empirical gap, practical gap, so many gaps, right? So you start putting the gaps and then you start to categorize the gap. So methodology gap, example methodology gap, I have 3. This one don't follow, I simply just took it from this thing. I just wanted to show you flow chart only, okay? So example methodology gap. Oh, I have one paper is talking about design gap. Another paper under methodology gap is talking about sample size. Another gap is talking about sampling technique, you know. So I put all the references here. So eventually I'll get a big map, yeah, mapping like this. And then now from there, I see which one has a lot of gap. So in my study, which one is the highlight of the gap? Then maybe I'll select 3 themes or 2 themes to further, to actually include in my thesis. Faham guys? Yani? Can you understand? Boleh?
Boleh faham.
So you fine tune some more lah, yeah? So this is called as thematic gap analysis. So can I put this diagram in my thesis under here? Under here, can I include this diagram in my thesis if I'm doing a thematic analysis? Boleh.
Can.
Yes. If you can include, it's actually very, very good. The strength, it adds on to the strength of your chapter 2. Okay? Wow, already 9:30. If I finish a bit late, okay, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah? Okay. So,
Got some question in the chat area, Doctor.
apa dia?
Ada question in the chat box.
Okay. Okay. Kat mana ya kita berhenti? Okay.
Dari Karmanisa.
Doktor, sorry saya masuk lewat sikit apa beza moderator, mediator dalam research. Moderator dengan mediator, apa beza dia? What is the difference between moderator and mediator? Moderator, okay, can you introduce a moderator and mediator as we wish? Because nowadays it's like a trend. If no moderator, no mediator, your how to say, your framework doesn't have a contribution. But in research, there's nothing like that. Yeah, in research, we only can introduce a moderator or a mediator when there is support from LR. So example, when there is a consistent, that means there is a, like between two variables, there is a consistent finding. That means most of the variables showing consistent kind of thing, all positive, 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 or all negative, 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 then we will introduce a mediator. When there is an inconsistent, then we will introduce a moderator, right? Sorry, I can't really go too deep into it. Yeah.
Actually, dear Prof, now there's another question came. What is the difference between moderator and infinity?
Yeah, there is a lot in that chapter. There is a lot. Infinity means there's no answer. It's like, the same answer forever, right? Okay. Give some time on problem statements, please, Prof. Okay. I'll come to that when I come to the chapter 1 part. Okay, doctor, how to identify gap in the LR? I still could not. You have to read. You need to read. Because gap is something that every paper, when you read the paper, gap means they don't write, oh, this is the gap. Every time you see the word, there is lack of studies. That's a gap, right? If in a paper, you see the word lack of studies conducted, is that a gap?
Yes.
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 There are not many studies which have used quantitative analysis. Is that a gap?
A methodology test, yes.
Methodology gap, pandai Diana. Okay, if you find like there is scarce studies which have done on SME, is that a gap?
Absolutely.
It's an industrial gap, right? Sector gap or industrial gap. So all these are gaps. That's why when you read a paper, you need to read the paper thoroughly. So actually in one paper itself, you'll get a lot of gaps. It's just that you don't know which word shows you a gap, because they won't write there gap. They don't use the word gap. Usually we'll see scarce, lack of, not many studies, lack of research done. These are all the meaning of gaps, okay? Okay, how do we identify theories? Hira, tadi sudah explain ya. Theories means in the beginning, you need to go and see theories studied in your DV. Like example, your DV is what? Your DV is on well-being, right? Employee well-being is your DV. Then you need to go and find from the literature. You go to Google Scholar, you type theories related to well-being, employee well-being, and see what comes out. Okay, or you search well-being and then you open the paper and see what theories are being used, and then you do the mapping just now like what I showed. Okay, Nozita, doctor, I'm using RBV theory for my DV firm performance and supporting theory using, but Bandura is individual, right, Zita?
Ya,
Okay.
betul.
But it's your firm level, okay. So as it means I need to find papers that use SCT as organizational unit of analysis. Betul. Are you sure Bandura been used for firm level?
Ada artikel yang menunjukkan begitu kita. Tapi yang biasa Bandura untuk individual.
Zita, kadang-kadang mereka salah guna ya Zita. So pastikan paper tu adalah paper yang bagus dari jurnal yang bagus ya.
Oh, okay.
Yes, don't believe all the papers. Sometimes the paper buat salah and kita pula ikut paper yang salah. So that's you have to make sure this type of things, make sure you get papers from reputable journals like Q1, Q2 macam tu. Then memang dia punya review sangat ketat, right? So they will not go wrong. That's why we always tell on critical part, use reputable journals. Don't use predatory journals. Okay.
Okay.
After when selecting or searching for a theory, should we focus on a yes, search on DB, and then from the DB theory that you select for the DB, that will give you a lot of input, what kind of IV that you should include so that it fits into the theory. So that's why I keep telling you early steps. First thing, identify focus area. Second, identify theory based on that focus area. Then you will never go wrong. Okay. Rohana, saya dah bagi tahu dalam kelas ya. The second session is recorded and we will upload in the YouTube channel ya. Okay, hi doctor, what's the difference between defining variables in chapter 2 is an operational definition in chapter 1? It's almost the same, it must sync. So some universities in chapter 1 we do key term definition, in chapter 2 we do operational definition, and in some universities is vice versa, the other way around. Some universities is the same. That means chapter 1 punya key term, I told you right, in chapter 2, we will put a few definition and then we will conclude one definition that we are going to adapt for the research. That one definition is the one we will actually bring it into your chapter 1 key term definition. Yeah. Okay, Sanggita. Hai Dr. Sekiranya teori model kita banyak, lebih dari satu, kita masukkan untuk sokong IV. Kita boleh ke doktor macam mana kita nak menamakan IV tersebut ikut kefahaman kita? Tak boleh ikut kefahaman ya, Syafiq, mesti ikut daripada LR. Ya. So kalau boleh stick to one theory, kalau you guna dua teori, pastikan dua teori is agreeable to each other, and whichever theory, there must be one theory to explain the variables. We cannot have a framework where there are certain variables cannot be explained by any theory. That means you are in trouble, Syafiq. Namakan teori itu mesti based on LR ya. Jangan, tak boleh gunakan layman language nya. Kita very simple, Huda. Sekejap lagi ya, saya akan datang ke bab 1. You choose your theory based on your DB. And then if your IVs cannot be supported by that theory, then only you need to have another theory to explain the IV. But first selection of theory is based on DB. Yes, Suhaila, betul. You need to find theories that support unit of analysis. Okay, last question ya. How we define the theory for more individual? Example, leader. Okay, this one based on LR. How we define the theory is based on LR. That means when the paper that where you are selecting the theory, that means you need to read about the history of the theory. Asal usul teori itu, criteria teori itu, perspective of the theory. So all these need to be explained under the underpinning theory in chapter 2. That means you start with the history of the theory. Siapa asal usul teori lah, which discipline it was actually came out from, siapa inventor dia, apa ciri-ciri teori itu, and whether the theory punya unit of analysis adalah individual ataupun firm level. Everything comes from LR with citation and references. Memang itu daripada paper ya. Yeah? Okay, back again ya. Minta maaf ya if I'm explaining too fast because memang banyak lagi nak cover ya. Okay, so this is one mapping. Another mapping, we can actually do this as well. This is also gap in literature. So as I told you, when you read papers lah, usually when I did my mapping but I didn't use diagram because my time saya tak pandai lagi guna diagram. I used like perenggan, I used numbering. I had 11 gaps in my study. In my thesis, I had 11 gaps. So what I did, every time I read a paper, there is a gap, I will write in an Excel. You know, this paper have this gap, this paper and this gap. So once I have sufficient gaps, then I try to group them according to grouping. And then I can come out. So you can actually do that and then come out with a diagram like this. So when you introduce gap mapping, gap diagrams, this actually carries a lot of weightage for your chapter 2, where examiners know exactly that, okay, based on this gap only, you are doing this research. Most of the time, examiners will be very doubtful of what you're doing is because they cannot see the gap clearly. Remember, why we are doing a research is actually we are trying to close a gap. But you're trying to close the gap, but I can't see the gap. Does it sound correct or not? The reason why we are doing research is to close the gap, right? Betul ke?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Doctor.
Yeah, you are trying to close a gap, but you are not showing me the gap. Then something is not right, isn't it? Betul
Yeah,
kan?
definitely, doctor.
Betul kan? Kalau saya tak nampak gap, macam mana saya tahu yang gap itulah yang kita sedang tutup? So that's why you must first of all build the confidence among your examiners by showing them clearly what are the gaps that you have identified. Then only they will actually believe that actually, okay, your research is trying to close this gap. And these gaps, these are the gaps which will be aligned back to chapter 1 in your problem statement. So this is one feedback that we always get in PD. Yeah? Your problem statement is not aligned to your research questions and gap. You will always get this feedback. It's because why? You started to do chapter 1 before you started to do your chapter 2. This is the thing. That means you haven't done your gap analysis, nothing, but you already finished writing your problem statement. So this is the issue that usually we will have. Okay? Okay. Yang ini memang susah lah ya. Yang ini memang susah. This is another way of doing, but sangat bagus if you're able. This one, we are finding the present research gap and we are linking the gap from DV to mediator, mediator to moderator, moderator to IV. So this gap leads to this one leads to this one leads to this. Okay. So memang susah nak buat, bukan susah nak buat lah, tapi ambil masa lah nak terangkan ya. So I will touch this during if I'm doing any workshop on chapter 2, or for those who are joining the bootcamp all, we will do this hands-on lah ya. But sorry, hari ni memang tak cukup masa. But if you are able to do this, you will not have a lot of questions in your chapter 2. Your chapter 2 becomes very strong. Yeah. This is we say a proper mapping. This is a very complete mapping between prior research and prior gap. Yeah. So this one we do the review, and this one we do the gap, and we map the gap from DV to ID. Yeah. Okay. Now done with chapter 1. Chapter 2, sorry, we have done with chapter 2. So once you finish chapter 2, we are going to move into chapter 1. Do you think after doing all this, you know your gap, you have a gap categorization, you know your theory in and out, how many theories have been used, what is the frequency, who have used, who are the popular person in your theory and everything, right? You have, and then this is also your variable mapping, why you have selected all these variables in your framework for IV, mediator, moderator based on your mapping on this line from this thing. So once you have done all this, right, now you are coming to your chapter 1. Do you think that you have accumulated sufficient competencies now to write a good chapter 1? That means your knowledge is memang cukup for you to, yes, right? But whereas once you finish your initial stage here, terus kita lompat ke sini. Do you think that you have sufficient knowledge to write your chapter 1? That means we never do chapter 2 straight. We start with chapter 1.
No, not enough.
So this is the two schools of thoughts lah. Yeah? Whether you start your chapter 1 straight away or you finish your chapter 2. That's why some supervisors will always won't allow you to write your chapter 1 until you finish chapter 2. The reason is nothing. The reason is in chapter 2, you need to read. So the more you read, the more equipped your brain is with all the sufficient gaps, theories, theory selection, variable selection, and blah, blah, right? So now when you venture into chapter 1, you actually give a better background of the study and a better problem statement. Faham ya?
Yes.
Okay. So this one, chapter 1. Now, what is the difference? Tadi pun dalam chat ada satu soalan, right? So what is the difference between background of the study and problem statement? Oh, class, sebelum tu. Now you have listened to what you're supposed to write in chapter 2. Now tell me where you are between 1 to 10 for your chapter 2 based on your thesis. That means 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. Where do you think, after listening to all these, where do you think your chapter 2, where will you park your chapter 2 between 1 to 10?
0.5.
Alamak, 0.5.
Lagi sedih tu, aduh.
Janganlah bagi heart attack 0.5. Pingsan. Right? Others, where do you think? Where do you think you are?
Dia kena buat survey lah. Record skill.
Record skill. Letak
Someone
dalam
said 0.01, 3, 4, 2.
0.01. Ini macam p-value significance level aja.
Yeah, Syafiq Zainuddin.
Okay. Tak adalah. I mean, at least now we are learning, right? So we know which part we need to correct ourselves. Okay. It's never late, yeah. Never late. Yeah. Tak apalah, kita belajar pun, at least we know what to repair. I rather slow down and repair than kena hantam dalam PD and Viva, yeah. Right. I don't want to get scolded maximum in PD because if they don't see, some examiners, they are very strict. They don't buy your ideas straight away, major or re-PD, right? So major still okay lah, kalau dapat re-PD habis hancur hati, yeah. So that's why it's okay, let's do, but let's be consistent. At least now I know where is my weakness. At least I know exactly where to repair myself. I always feel scared, right? Yeah lah, first day, let's say I set for exam, out of 10, I get only 1 correct. It's okay. I will feel sad for a day, but at least the next day I know my room for improvement, where I need to drill in already. So today, even though this is not a very in-depth workshop, because we are covering like 3 major chapters in less than about 2.5 hours. So I know we cannot cover so much, but at least roughly I know what is my room for improvement. So definitely I will improve, okay? Okay, back to chapter 1, yeah? So, what is the difference between background of the study and problem statement? Very simple. Background is writing about what? Background, you're highlighting the
Issue.
Yes, no, issue is problem statement. Here is importance of your study or specifically your focus area.
The topic.
Yes, your focus area means your DV lah, yeah? Simple say is your DV, yeah? So background is the place we need a lot of statistics. We need a lot of data, right? From journals, basically from websites, from reports, government reports, private reports, NGOs, this kind of data, not so much on articles, right? So for background and problem statement, our focus is not so much on articles. We want the data coming more from reports, published reports, NGO reports, things like that, and then like government websites or reliable websites, So this kind of thing, and a lot of statistics, a lot of diagrams and things like that. So background gives us a funnel approach. Start from big and then you narrow down. Sama macam ni. Same like this. You use a funnel approach to write the best way and easiest way. We have so many ways of writing a background, but I like to use a funnel approach to teach my students when we are writing background of the study. That means you can start global. Okay. All right. You can start like global. That means example, employee performance, because I did employee performance in SME. So first, first draft, I wrote employee performance global, and then only I narrowed down SME. But I started with employee performance in a global SME, and then I tried to narrow down to Malaysia. But something did not fit because the definition of SMEs between different countries are quite different. So it didn't tally. So what I did, I started from Malaysia. So I started with employee performance. Actually, I didn't start with employee performance. I started with manufacturing. So I started with manufacturing in Malaysia. And then from manufacturing, I narrowed down to SME manufacturing. And then from SME manufacturing, I narrowed down to employee performance. And then I started to drill on employee performance. And then towards the end, I tried to link employee performance with other variables. So this is what we call a funnel approach. But whatever is it, only in the last paragraph of your background of the study, we will actually introduce a little bit on the issues. And then we'll close. and start with problem statement. Problem statement is all about issues. Problem statement is all about issues. Okay, all about issues. So you don't talk about issues in background except for the conclusion part lah, yeah? So overall background of the study. Now, example, when you want to write a thesis, definitely I will ask, right, why you want to do your research, right? Can you tell that your research is not important? Can or not? Can or not? Hello? Boleh ke? Definitely you must tell me why your research is important before you talk about the issues, right?
Yes.
I want to know why your research is important. Once you are able to justify the importance of your topic, then only you can tell, because my topic is so important, that's why I want to go deeper into solving these issues. So that you bear that in mind. First of all, you must tell me that your topic is very important, and because of that, all the issues coming out from your topic is very crucial for this study, and your study want to try to solve these issues. That's the flow. So background of the study is about importance. Problem statement is about issues. And these issues are the issues related back to the gaps that you have discussed in your chapter 2. So when you finish the gap analysis in your chapter 2, it will actually strengthen your way of writing your problem statement. Okay, I give you one simple example, and this is the example I always share in my normal workshops about problem statement. When you go to a clinic, right, you had stomachache, let's say past 3 days, you're having stomachache, you're having diarrhea, high fever. When you go to a clinic, what is the first thing doctor will ask you?
Sakit
What
apa?
did you
Symptom. What's your symptom?
Symptoms.
So dia akan tanya, okay, kenapa ni, sakit apa, what's wrong with you, right? Boleh tak? Okay, let's say Rafi, when you go to clinic, when the doctor see you, straight away the doctor asks you, how many days you're sick, how many days you're vomiting, how many days you're having fever. You rasa macam mana, Rafi?
Frightened.
Frightened lah, ni apa? Pergi tengok doktor ke bomo ni? Tengok saja, belum buka mulut dia sudah tanya berapa hari sakit perut, right? So first of all, dia akan tanya satu general view, right?
Yes.
Okay, Rafi, selamat petang. Why are you here? What's wrong with you? Itu adalah kita punya apa? Just we want to know about the issue. That is problem statement. After you explain, oh doctor, already 3 days, I'm having stomach pain, I cannot eat anything. If I eat anything, I start having diarrhea, I'm having fever, blah, 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 blah. He will again continue asking question, right?
Yep.
What question? Research question. He will start asking what question? Specific questions. So the specific questions are coming from where? The specific questions are coming from where?
Research question. General.
Your
Objective.
from objective is what you want to achieve, right? Your question must come from where?
From the issues. From the issues.
So this is what your gap analysis in chapter 2 must relate to your problem statement issues. Your problem statement issues must relate to your research question. That means if I read your problem statement, after that, I read your research question. Now I know, I can understand why you raised this research question and why you want to find answers for this research question. Because by finding answers for the research question, I will understand this problem. I will be able to solve this problem. So that's why. And if you see, most of the time in your PD, they will have this part. They say your problem statement is not aligned to your research question and your gap. We don't see the link. Problem statement is talking about something else. Research question is talking about something else. Okay, example lah. Rafi told the doctor he's having stomach pain, he's having diarrhea, he's having fever. And then the doctor asked, how many days you're having headache?
Not related.
Not related. So that is the story about your thesis as well. So if you get a feedback from your examiners saying that your problem statement not aligned to research question and your gap, that is what is meant by them. That means your issues that you are talking in your problem statement they are not aligned to your research question. That means this one is going to Johor, this one is going to Kedah. Two different pathways, right? So when you write about problem statement, we need to make sure after reading the problem statement, now I know why you raised this question, why you want to find answer for this question. Okay? Faham? So we tried. So issues also say we will have a lot of statistics. More statistics you use, more reports you use, more stronger the issues become. Okay, we want to hear about these things. Okay, research objective is basically what you want to achieve. That means once you have done with the research question, research objective is what you want to achieve by doing this research. That's research objectives lah. Okay, and then you will focus on research significance. Research significance ada dua ya. We have theoretical and practical. Okay, if you are PhD student, which one you need to cover more? You dua-dua ya, you have to do both. If you are a PhD student, this one will be almost 60.
Theoretical.
Yeah, 60 to 70%. Okay, theoretical will be more, and then practical will be about 30 to 40 lah ya. If you are doing DBA, it should be what? The other way around lah, yeah. Because DBA, Doctorate in Business Administration, we focus more on practical issues compared to theoretical. So the other way around, okay? So that's the significance. So significance in a way is actually your contribution, early contribution. What do you think that your research is going to contribute? So this is actually talking about significance is about your contribution, okay? So this significance, this scope of study all is quite easy lah, you know, it's not very difficult. Even if you read about 2-3 theses, right, you will actually understand how to write. But don't copy from other theses because their study is from different area, our study is different area. You just can follow the way of writing, but write according to your scope of study lah, yeah. So scope of study is what? What is scope of the study? What do you mean?
Limitation.
Sorry?
Your context.
Limitations of the study.
Scope of study is about
Limitation.
Contribution.
Your focus.
Limitations.
focus is what, in which industry, which company, all those things, you know. Like you went, okay, like example, in my scope of study, I said that I'm only going to focus on medium-sized manufacturing, and based on the definition given by SME Corp, where medium manufacturing SMEs comprise of 75 to 200 employees. And I am only selecting the medium manufacturing companies which are registered under Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers FMM directory. So you explain your scope. That means you need to narrow down. Can you do, if you don't narrow down, can you do like SMEs in the world? Can or not?
No.
No.
So it's not feasible, right? So this
It will
part is,
take forever.
yeah, it's too huge because we don't have that much of time. So that's why you need to narrow down your scope into manageable region. So you need to explain what is your scope. If you're doing in Pakistan, then you mention that your study will only focus on Pakistan or certain part of Pakistan, certain part of Malaysia or whatever, not, and why, and things like that, that scope, okay? And then the last part will be usually definition of key term, key constructs or key term. And okay, under the definition of key constructs or terms, usually some people, they will write like paragraphs, some people will write in a table format. I usually prefer to write table format. So for key term definition, yeah, can I use 2, 3, can I use 2, 3 definitions or citations? Can I combine definition?
No.
Yes, can combine.
Cannot. We need to choose one.
You choose one. Okay? You choose one. So if it is from one person, Christian means it's like from Christine, right? You cannot combine half definition from Ali, another half definition from Ahmad, and you combine it into one, cannot. Okay? So what is the difference between key term and operationalized? Some universities use that word doesn't go into my mouth. Operational line. So what is the difference between operational definition and key term definition. Key term definition, you don't change anything. You just take the definition. Okay, Ali stated that employee performance is blah, 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 blah. You just stick directly. Operational means you take the definition, but you need to explain the definition in the context of your study. That's two different things. Yeah, faham ke? So whether it's operational, whether it is operational or whether it is key term, okay, you still follow, you take it from one person. Yeah. So,
So Doctor, the chapter 1, should we put the key terms or operational terms?
University. Some university use key terms, some university use operational. How about your university?
I think key term.
Key term is lagi senang. Key term is a bit more easier than operational. But if a school of education banyak guna operational, betul tak? Betul tak?
So, Prof, one question about the problem statement that you mentioned. You said that we have to identify the issues between the variables. So, since when you started talking about it, you mentioned that theory is very important. So when we are writing our problem statement, do we talk about the theory and build up a relation or build up some sort of picture between variables that we are studying, the industry that we are studying, or the sample side we have chosen and the theory?
No. Here problem statement is general issues. We don't go very specific. Specific is in chapter 2. Here we talk general issues in your sector or your selected scope. That's it. We don't go and focus, main issues will come from your DV, but towards the end, we will connect to a few issues relating to variable. But our highlight in background and problem statement are actually your DV.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Don't do connection, detailed connection between variable. That one, we keep it for chapter 2. Yeah.
Doctor, one question from Sangeeta.
Yes.
Can we include statistical evidence in problem statement?
Yes.
Of background?
Yes, statistical evidence is very, very good, very strong for your problem statement. Okay.
Doctor.
Yes.
Can I know whether we have to include limitations in our chapter 1? Do we have to include that?
Some universities they include. Majority of universities they don't include.
Okay.
So university need to include. You need to include. That's why I told you all. This is just the basic key topics. Yeah. So, but there might be some addition based on your thesis guideline of your university. So please go back, whatever it is, your thesis guideline is ultimate importance in your preparing your chapters. Yeah. So these, whatever I have discussed today, the topic, these are basically compulsory, must be in your research proposal, but there might be some additional to it based on your different universities. Okay. And the arrangement as well. Yeah. Some universities, hypothesis development comes in chapter 3, some comes in chapter 2. So all that you need to follow your university. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. Okay. The last part, your methodology. Okay. So in methodology, very important, you must have research paradigm. Some examiners, actually nothing much for you to write in your research paradigm. If when it comes to research paradigm, we have this ontology, all those things, epistemology, ontology, and methodology, methodological. So we have the three things. So you just need to understand that. You can actually read on paradigm based on McKinsey. McKinsey have 4 paradigms, and most quantitative will fall under positivism. So you just need about 1 page to 1.5 page to explain what is research paradigm. Usually examiners, we don't really read your research paradigm, but we want to see that in your chapter 3 because that shows that you're a research student and we know that you understand where are your roots coming from. That means you're a quantitative person or you're a mixed method person, or if you're a qualitative person or whatever, we know that you are aware what are your grounds. It's like kita punya asal usul lah dalam research. So that's why we want to know that you actually read about it and you write a little bit on this. Okay. So next most important is your research design. So your research design, under your research design, you need to explain your research design, whether you're a quantitative, whether you're doing mixed method or whether you're doing qualitative. And then under your research design, What approach are you going to use? Are you using questionnaire approach? Are you using interview approach? What approach and things like that. So these are the things, and whether you are doing a correlational study, you know, all these things are the one that we will explain in research design. Again, please, research design is just one page. I have seen people writing 3-4 pages. What are you writing so much? The more you write, the more high risk of doing what wrong things like. So keep it short and simple, straight to the point. So in chapter 3, please don't write a book. We don't want to read a book. We just want to read, we just want to know what exactly that you're going to do in your whole thesis. That's your research plan. Your chapter 3 is actually your research plan, right? So we just want to know what is your plan. So go straight to your plan. You don't have to talk about other things in your research plan. Just tell us what exactly that you are going to adapt into your research, okay? Next is you need to come out with a research flow chart, research process flow chart. This flow chart pun sama juga. Most of y'all never do. Okay, most of y'all never do, right? If you can do, it will be, it shows that, you know, that your plan is good lah. We can actually see your plan, and examiners will be like, you know, more, how to say, more confident lah in what you're doing, yeah, your research plan. Okay, so this is your research plan. Okay, I have a sample here. This is sample research plan. Okay, kecil sangat pula. Nampak tak? Can you see?
Can see.
You see, So your process and task first is defining a research problem. So under defining research problem, what are the things that you're going to do? Understand the research context, identify emerging problem or gap, and then what is the output? So based on this, your output will be your research problem, research objective, research question, blah, blah. So similar. This one I use in my thesis. This one I took from another thesis. I like the way they do also, right? So tengoklah mana-mana, but jangan, you don't follow 100% this. You have to base on your research, what exactly that you're doing, because some of y'all might be doing mixed method, some of y'all be doing DDR, some of y'all are doing pure quantitative C. So come out with a research flow chart, okay? So this is important. This is what research process flow chart. Nothing much to explain about a flow chart. As long as you have a flow chart which shows you what are the steps that you're going to include overall in your research and how did you develop your research. That's a flow chart, okay? So maybe this is a sample. Try to come out with your own design, you know, your own way, which is lagi colorful ke, more attractive ke, you know. So try to improvise further, yeah? Boleh kan? Can, right? Boleh ke?
Yes.
Boleh.
Dah berasap ke? Belum lagi?
Belum lagi. Tengok pun dah tahu dah apa akan jadi ni.
Okay. So next, very, very, very crucial is population and sampling. So population and sampling is killer. You must make sure you explain correctly who are your population and how are you going to do your sampling. I think even the previous class I have explained. So under population and sampling, what are the 4 things that you need to explain? Siapa ingat? Who can remember? Those who joined my previous session.
Unit of analysis.
One is population.
Sampling frame.
Under population, one is population. Second will be sampling, right?
Yes.
So sampling design, right?
Population sampling.
Yes. One is population. Second is for sampling design. Third is unit of analysis. And 4th is sample size. So there are 4 things that you need to explain under population and sampling. And this is very, 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 very crucial. And this one, you make any mistake here, which can lead to major correction, especially determining your sample design. Yeah. When you're determining your sampling design, please, you must know the difference between probability sampling, non-probability sampling. What are the criteria for using a probability sampling? You must have a sample frame, all that you must be well versed, because that part surely you will have question in your PD. So this is a favorite question. Your question will come a little bit from your research design, and many questions will come from population and sampling. Okay, why did you choose 100 people? Why are you choosing 300? All those things. Next will be your questionnaire design process, another killer part, right? So when you are doing your questionnaire design process, so it comes up with many steps, right? How are you going to adapt? Remember, we cannot write our own question, so we need to adapt and adopt, right? So there are a few steps that you have to do in order for you to validate and check for reliability, right? Validation and reliability assessment, very important for your questionnaire. Like example, the translation part, doing content validity using expert review, content validity index, and then doing based on respondent review, and then doing a pilot test, all these processes lah. Okay, for you to understand questionnaire design process, for those who have not joined my instrument development class, hopefully I will be able to do a free session next week. If I'm doing a free session next week, it's going to be on instrument development now, yeah? So the day I will confirm by tomorrow or day after, okay? Okay, so that one, please join that class. It will be very, very beneficial for those who are developing questionnaire or survey form, yeah? Because that is the most crucial one. Is actually your questionnaire development, because questionnaire development will have high impact on your data quality for your chapter 4. Yeah. Okay. And last but not least, this will be the statistical data analysis technique. So under statistical data analysis technique, it looks simple, right? But there's a lot under this. Statistical data analysis technique nampak macam satu ayat kan? Just look like one statement, right? Betul tak? Betul.
Ya, betul.
But you have a lot to cover under that. Okay, a lot. I think I can show you this. Okay, this is the bootcamp punya outline, yeah. So if you see here, I'll just show you this part. Statistical data analysis. All this has to be covered under statistical data analysis. Sikit ke banyak?
Banyak.
Banyak.
Nampak saja sikit. This one just I put the headline saja. So this is where you will tell what kind of statistical analysis that you are going to do. So usually we will use SPSS, initial stage SPSS. Later part we will be using Smart TLS for those who are using Smart TLS. And then some of y'all may opt to use AMOR, some of y'all may opt to use other methods. And then some of y'all, if you're doing mixed method, maybe you want to do triangulation and things like that. So many. So whatever method that you are going to use to analyze your data in chapter 4, you need to explain and list it down in chapter 3 in your methodology. Now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought, your pro, because I was confused. You're reading the writing data analysis under chapter 3. So I was totally confused, like, because as much as we are aware that it's supposed to be in chapter 4.
The analysis is in chapter 4, but the plan is in chapter 3. Okay? The analysis of statistical analysis we can only do once you have collected the data in chapter 4. So the findings of your analysis will be reported in chapter 4. But what kind of tests and techniques that you are going to use in chapter 4, you need to describe as a plan in chapter 3, which will come under here. So your chapter 3 data analysis techniques that you plan to use and the analysis that you're going to do in chapter 4 must be aligned together. So sometimes a question comes up. Some students will ask, Doctor, I'm new to research. I just started my chapter 1 to 3. When I should start attending data analysis classes or workshops? What will be the answer? After you collect data or before you collect data?
Before, obviously before.
Obviously before. You have to start as early as possible. Why? Then only you know what to write in chapter 3 and what is the analysis, because there are many types of analyses. Only when you attend classes and you learn, then only you know whether that analysis is appropriate for your research or there are any other extra additional part into the technique or not. Because again, remember, you know your thesis better than me, right? Like example, I teach SPSS and Smart TLS. I teach based on what I have learned. But whether it suits your research or not, only you have to know. I cannot tell it. I really don't know what's your research all about in detail, right? I only can teach you the techniques. But the suitability of, because there are many ways that you can use to analyze the data, not just Smart PLS alone. We have many, many ways. So now, after learning a few methods, then only you can actually conclude, okay, which method will be suitable for my data, which analysis will be most suitable for my research. Then that one you need to decide, okay? So many times students will ask, Doctor, I just started my thesis. I'm just writing my chapter 3. Don't you think it's too early for me to attend data analysis class? No, right? If you're going to attend data analysis class after collecting data, do you think it's too late? Do you think it's too late?
No.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, because once you have collected the data, let's say you have collected the data from 400 people, and then when you came to chapter 4, you realize you missed out collecting one important data. What will happen? God bless you, huh? Can or not? Can or not?
Maybe dear Prof, we did not get your question properly. Apologies.
So, what I mean is like, you have collected your data. You have come out with your questionnaire. You have collected your data, right? So after collecting the data, you go into chapter 4. Now only you attend a workshop. You are going to learn about data analysis. And you found out, in order for you to do the analysis, you need one type of data which you forgot to collect. Can you analyze your data? And you have already collected from 400 people.
Then I will have to start from zero from beginning.
Okay? That's why I say God bless you. Okay? You need to go and find the 400 people. How to find the 400 people? Mostly we are using Google Forms somehow. Right?
Right.
So that's why learn early so that we know exactly what are the things to collect data from. What type of data you should collect, what kind of questions that you need to include in your questionnaire so that you are well prepared. Okay. Sometimes I feel very difficult, to do this. You know why? Sometimes when I tell you all, right, start going for workshops early. Sometimes you might be thinking I'm promoting my program. So my intention is not to promote. I don't want you to cry later, right? I started Smart PLS very much early. When I started developing my research framework, I already started attending Smart PLS classes, SPSS classes, right? So many times. I attended not one time, 2 times. Yeah, I would have attended more than 10, 15 times until I am able to master the subject. So that's why now I can speak confidently, right? So it's nothing comes easy, right? So thank God I started attending early so I could foresee what kind of issues that I will have in chapter 4. So I was very, very careful with my questionnaire design and data collection. So thank God, because of that, I didn't have issues in chapter 4, right? So that's the thing that we are highlighting to you. And another thing, once you have learned this data analysis technique, doesn't matter AMOS or Smart PLS or SPSS, you can actually start collecting small data and start publishing papers as well. You don't have to wait until you finish your thesis and then get your data, then only you want to publish papers. You can start publishing papers, empirical papers much earlier if you know how to analyze the data, okay? So that is what we need to cover in chapter 3. Okay, now the last part. Okay, so far okay class?
Doktor, nak tanya boleh?
Boleh.
Doktor, tadi doktor bagi pengalaman doktor untuk kalau data apa semua tu, tu masa tu doktor dah start PhD ke ataupun sebelum PhD?
Baru start.
Oh, maksudnya semester pertama, semester kedua macam tu doktor?
Ya, betul.
Okay.
I started quite early. That's why that means when I started my study itself, I started attending workshop and I started helping my seniors, a lot of my seniors who got stuck with they have the data but they don't know how to analyze for almost few semesters. So I started helping them and then I started to structuring the chapter 4, that is how to analyze and report. So I became an expert before I started to do my data analysis. So when I collected my data, I managed to complete my data analysis and writing chapter 4 in 5 days because I already created the template for them, right? So it was very much easier for me. That's why I keep telling you what I did, that's what I'm sharing with you all. I'm not actually asking you all to join my class. You can join any Smart PLS class. You can join any analysis class which you are comfortable with, but start early. just that reminder is start early. Don't wait until you finish collecting data, because once you have data already, you can't do much. If you have done any wrong things in your data collection, right? Some of it you cannot be repaired. Then you need to recollect your data all over again, and that will be very, very much time consuming. Okay. Okay, last part. Sekejap nak minum air Sat. Are you all with me?
Dear Prof, actually, to be honest with you, regarding the questionnaire interviews, we are thinking to apply the same way how we used to do in bachelor and master, and that's make a like a dinner party or lunch party and call everybody there, the category, and just make the survey and finish the interview there. That's the fastest way, really. Otherwise, by sending email, sometimes it take forever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, can we continue?
Yes.
Yes, Tata.
Okay. Rafi, how many people still tahan in our this thing?
146.
Wow, good, good. Okay. What to expect in proposal defense? This is the, I have, berapa soalan ya? Ada 25, 24 lah ya. Okay, I just want you to take a pen or a pencil for every question. If you feel that you will be getting this question in your PD or you did get it in your PD, can you just put a tick? Boleh kah? Take a paper lah, boleh? Okay?
Boleh, boleh.
Okay. Question
Boleh, Doktor.
what to expect in proposal defense. Problem statement is not aligned to research question and general gap.
Check.
Yes, right?
Mesti ada punya.
Mesti ada. Right? And this question will never end until Viva lah, ya? Right.
Ya, betul.
Betul, unless when you start writing, you start with chapter 2. When you start chapter 2 and then you go to chapter 1, mungkin ada, but it will not be as strong as the previous one, right? Because the way you write, if you finish chapter 2 and then only you go to chapter 1, the way you write your background and your problem statement will be much, much better and much more stronger, right? Soalan nombor 2. Background of the study and problem statement looks like the same. Ada tak?
Yes. Ada.
Because dua-dua pun cakap tentang isu aja. So apa perbezaan dia? Both are talking about issues. So what is the difference? Right? This is another question, favorite question will come out in your PD, in your correction lah ya. Question 3, research question and research objective not aligned to research framework. I still see this. So that's why sometimes some students who come for personal coaching, right? First thing I will ask them to show me your framework. Based on the framework only, I'll check your research question, research objective. So the most common one is that your research framework, the variable punya nama, dia tak selari dengan research question. The variables that you are mentioning in your research question is not in your framework. The variables that you mention in research framework is not in your research question. Tapi yang ini, if you start attending workshops, you will improvise lah ya. So make sure they are aligned, okay? So I think y'all don't have this issue much, right? Dah betul kan, right? So you see, the terminologies that you're using for your variables, it must be standardized across 5 chapters. Don't give different names for the same variable in different chapters, yeah? Okay. Next is number 4, research framework not strong. Pernah dengar tak? Mesti ada punya, right? Your research framework, that means your selection of variables that you put into your framework, they are not very strong, or sometimes, they say that this is not relevant, that is not relevant, and that kind of thing. 5, theory doesn't clearly explain the selected variables. Very common. This one very common.
Depends on the expert on the Viva or PD lah.
If they are pakar in your theory, habis lah ya. Okay. So if your examiners are an expert in the theory that you are selected, you better be careful. Especially when you are not able to explain. Okay, this one is very common. When we read your chapter 2, you write the history of the theory. You write theory is invented by whom, what is the characteristic, blah, blah, blah. You write a lot about theory, sejarah. But you don't write about how the theory explains the variable. That is a weak point. Yeah? Actually, what we want to know is about the history or is about how the theory explains the variable. Which one is more important? Which one?
Second.
Second.
How the theory explain the math lah.
You understand the theory, you understand your variable, but you're not able to, conceptualize the variables through the theory. And that part you need to look into, because that is the most important thing. That's what we want to, examiners, that is what they want to see. How your theory is able to explain about the variables. Okay, number 6, mismatch of theory to the study. That means the theory that you have selected doesn't match your scope of study. This one will lead to major correction, yeah. This one you need to be very careful. That's why again and again do all the mapping properly, support with papers which have used the theory in your area of study. Then at least you know that you're actually supported with the right theory and you have data to support that. Okay. Another thing is too many theories. Saya pernah tengok ada orang letak 4-5 theory. So it's not, there's no such thing. More theory is better. Yeah. So please be careful on that. And then justification to the selected theory is not strong. Your theory selection and your justification why you are selecting the theory. You just say that I'm using this theory because Ali 2024 stated that this theory can study employee performance. Is that a very good justification? It's just one person somehow.
No.
No, right? So your mapping is not so strong, yeah? So that thing. LR not in depth. This one also very common. You write your literature review, but you never like in depth. You just very shallow, and you don't use past studies much. You never used past studies much, and all your citation for your LR are very old. So remember, yeah, especially hypothesis development, your citations or your references must be within 5 years. Yeah. For LR, for problem statement, for background of the study, and for gap analysis, we want you to use articles or references which is within 5 years. Why? Why we don't encourage you to use old citations, especially doing the gap part all? Because, sorry?
Outdated.
Yeah, some of the old papers, even though they are Q1 paper, but the gap in that paper would have been resolved in citation. So that gap may not be a gap now because there are very old papers. So definitely other researchers have solved it last time. So it's not a gap anymore, but you're trying to solve it now. So does it make sense or not?
No.
Yeah, that's why we want to hear about current papers. What is the current gap? What's being said currently? Yeah, that's what we are trying to do. References to old and not from reputable journals. Okay, journal also you must keep on checking. Yeah, sometimes the journal like MDPI was very famous last time, but now not so famous, right? And some universities don't allow you to use MDPI, right? Betul tak?
Yes.
Yeah, betul.
So you need to know which are the predatory journals and everything. So make sure, because usually examiners, they will know. Examiners are selected from your scope lah, yeah? Examiners will be selected from your scope of study. That means they are an expert in your area. So when they just look at your bibliography, your reference list behind, they just glance through also, they know that all your references are actually from good journals. Overall, they are from good journals or not. But when they see all that journals which are not good, then they will become like, was-was lah dengan study kita. That means they will become like, suspicious about our references and our arguments and things like that. So overall, make sure you know how to use like Schemago, H-index, check the journals ranking, all for the important parts lah, yeah? Especially when you want to select instruments, when you want to select gap and all that, make sure these things all come from reputable journals. Okay, no specific gap. As I told you, your research is trying to close a gap, but we cannot see specific gap. What gap you're trying to close, we don't know. Yeah? And then chapter 2, structure is not good, too jumbled up. You really don't know. Many people struggle in structuring chapter 2. Betul tak? Betul tak?
Yes.
What to write in chapter 2, we really don't know. We only know one thing in chapter 2, mesti ada theory. The rest of it, I don't know how to write, and then you don't know what is the difference between writing about definition and conceptualization and writing about hypothesis development. We don't know the difference writing these two things. So that's another thing. And then we don't know how to do gap analysis. Okay, we just know that we need to include gap, but we don't know how to use gap. Maybe today you saw the diagrams, it gives you some idea lah, yeah. Okay, and then lack of coherence in writing. That means there's no flow and there's no storytelling between writing. So one point and another point, there's no connections. Tiba-tiba you talk about A, suddenly you jump to C. Then suddenly you jump to E. So we don't see the why you are bringing in this point here and why you're connecting it to the next point. We don't see the connection. Okay. And then LR looks like direct reporting, lack of argument, lack of synthesis, lack of analysis. You always, this is another issue, yeah, very, very common issue. You always talk about A said this, B said this, C said that, and then you move to the next point. So, okay, A said this, B said this, C said this. So what is your say, tak nampak? So your argument is not that. It's all about other people. We want to hear from you. I know citation reference is important, but not everything is about others. The most important is your say in it. That part is not sufficient. And then your methodology, why probability when there is no sample frame? You don't know how to answer, right? And then sometimes you mix probability and non-probability. You take purposive sampling with simple random sampling. Boleh tak? Can you combine simple random with purposive?
Cannot.
Boleh, cannot, betul.
One is from probability, another one is non-probability, major correction, right? So, and then you don't know what is survey data, you don't know, and then panel data for secondary data, you combine everything, campur aduk, you don't know, because you copy from multiple theses without knowing what it is, okay? And then poor justification for sample size calculation, right? And then population and sample doesn't share same characteristic. I think this one I've stressed many times. Population tigers, sample is cheetah. Betul ke? Boleh tak?
Tak.
Salah.
Yalah, ciri-ciri tak sama kan? Okay. And then measurements are not measuring what is intended to be measured. This is a very, very serious issue here. Measurements are not measuring. That means your definition about the variable is different, but your items are measuring something else. And the measurements are not aligned to definition. Combining items from various sources is a big sin in measurement development, yeah? So all these I'll cover next week, yeah? Items are not validated and no reliability assessment. You just adapt. You never even adopt. You just adapt, put in a questionnaire, and then you straight away went to collect your data. That's another big issue nanti. So, right, data analysis technique not explained clearly. This one is very shallow in chapter 3. Your data analysis technique, you just say that you're going to use smart PLS. Under smart PLS also got a lot of branches. We have reflective, we have formative analysis, we have reflective analysis, and so many things. What exactly that you want to do, we don't know, right? We have dimensions, we have unidimensions, we have dimensions, you have so many things that you need to explain, the steps, but you never explain, too shallow. And why is smart PLS? No justification. And worst part, wrong unit of analysis, okay? So out of 24, how many you think that you need to improve?
Oh,
How many?
24.
Janganlah 24. Pengsan ke? God bless you. Banyak ke? Banyak ke?
Banyak juga.
More than 50% lah tu.
Apalah, right? Kalau banyak tu, okay, at least kita dah, I already highlighted today. So at least now you know you got a lot of homework, right? Betul tak?
Yes, dear.
Betul? Banyak sangat.
At least you know what to be corrected. So you can start correcting them before you can actually proceed to the next level. So remember, everybody makes mistakes. It's just a matter of, but janji, we do for correction. Okay? Boleh ke?
The main problem is that your prof, we are fully confident that what we are doing is correct, but then we shocked about, you know, like the response regarding the presentation itself.
Yes, correct, betul. Okay, so that's why you sometimes, you know, you have workshops, even like free workshops or things like that. try to attend, because every workshop you will learn something. Doesn't matter, you know, we will keep learning and learning. So the more we learn, the more we improve. Again, be critical juga lah. Not like every workshop they ask you to do certain things, you must do everything, yeah. So that's where your analytical and critical skill come in. See whether it makes sense to you, and then you may want to discuss with your supervisor, and then you make your correction. Okay, your supervisor say, oh, okay, that speaker was good. What she said makes sense. Okay, change. No, I think what you're doing is correct. Just maintain, and you maintain it. Okay, so I'm not saying that, you know, every single thing you hear, you must go back and correct. Use your apa kata, your apa your intuition lah juga So your intuition, whether you want to follow, whether you feel that you know what you're doing is right, whether you feel that you need to change, things like that, right? So there's a lot for us to actually change. Okay, so okay, ada soalan tak? Yeah, before we good standing.
Thank you so much, dear Prof.
Sorry? Hong Wei.
Thank you so much. Terima kasih.
Oh, thank you, Rose. Okay, wow, that was really clever already.
Doctor, I have a question. Can I?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. For example, I did this so-called preliminary study. I mean, I met the experts in the field just to ensure that my topic and that there is really a problem exists. They acknowledge that what I'm going to study is like something is relatable to what is really happening. So in the thesis or in the proposal, is there anywhere that I can put my findings on this?
Boleh. Preliminary study for you to determine your variables. You call that as needs analysis. You can actually do a need analysis. So if you do a need analysis, actually it's also very, very strong because it's coming directly from experts from the industry, right? So it's good. So that one you will actually park in chapter 2.
Oh, in chapter 2, Doctor, yeah?
Chapter 2.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Doctor, in chapter 1, do I need to write a separate part named justification? Because I saw some PhD students wrote that subtitle in chapter 1. Justification for what, Hong?
Hello, Doctor. Justification of research.
Yes. Some schools they use that justification for your study. Can. But again, go back to your own school. Yeah, if you're different schools, even though same university, different schools sometimes they are slightly different. So see whether in your school they are applying that or not. Like in my school, we didn't have it. Even though I'm from UUM, in my school we don't have justification for study. But some universities I've seen that.
Yes, I'm a UM student.
Okay.
But I noticed that some students write that, but another students didn't write this.
And the best thing, you ask your supervisor, need to write or no need to write, because we don't have a standard agreement on that.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, okay. Okay, Suzy, Doctor, is research, yes, research philosophy and research paradigm is the same. Okay, Idayu, can we use multiple RD is what?
Research design, Doctor.
For example, case study and experiment, both approach is quantitative. Okay, experiment can be done using a case study. Boleh, Idayu.
Alright, thank you.
Tapi kena baca ya, you're using DDR ke?
Bukan.
Okay, are you using causal?
Tak, because I mean for data analysis actually I'm using simulation software to analyze the data.
Oh, okay.
Because
Faham. Okay, and then Sangeeta, Dr. beside questionnaire, what other instruments can be used in quantitative study to promote triangulation of data? You can do interview. Yes, interview can be done to triangulate, even though you sometimes some people think when we use let's say we are doing quantitative, right? So quantitative means when we analyze our data, we will get our findings. So your findings will say whether your hypothesis is supported or hypothesis is not supported. After that, we can do another extra field interview. That means you select a few experts, you conduct the interview, you ask them the similar question like what you collected data in your hypothesis, and then we will triangulate the results that we get from the interview with the answers that we get from the data analysis. But you're not coming under mixed method. So it's just that the interview part further enhances your finding for your quanti, but you are still coming under quanti. So you still don't come under mixed method. So some people feel that, you know, just by adding that small part, immediately your study becoming mixed method. No, it's not like that. Okay, you're still quanti. Yeah. Okay, Prof, please do a free workshop in chapter 2. Yes, Saira, soon. Let's join. Okay, Rafi. Okay, thank you, Doctor. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for joining today's session. Wow, it's almost 10:45. We are still maintaining at 120. That means all of you all are very good students. Betul-betul nak belajar ni, ya. So, okay, so thank you so much. And if you all are planning for a holiday in Penang, please join us for the boot camp. So we still can accept about 10 people. So please join our boot camp, and I wish you good luck in your chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So after this, that means you have a lot of homework already lah, yeah? So you all can start doing your homework by correcting your chapter 1, 2, 3. So wish you all the best. Okay, Rafi? Back to you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, guys, for your time, and
Thank
hopefully
you,
you're
Doctor.
joining us on Penang Bootcamp.
Thank
Face
you,
to face.
Doctor. Thank you,
Okay, bye,
Doctor.
guys. Assalamualaikum. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Risitia.
so much, Doctor.
So much, Doctor.
Good
Thank
luck
you,
to
Doctor.
us.